Hi, everybody. Welcome. People trickling in. Got people from all over the world once again. Always great to see. We've got Ireland, Minnesota, London, Isle of Skye, North Carolina, East Coast of Ireland, Michigan, more London. Cool. Washington State. I'm just out of tune. Hope you're all doing well this morning or afternoon or evening. It's going to be a little of some of that for each of you, all over the place. Welcome. If you haven't been to one of these before, wow, this is great. We got over 40 people already. Right out of the gate. This is great. Welcome to everybody. You'll see a lot of familiar faces. See some folks I haven't seen before. Welcome. Okay, so I already got a question what those last tunes were. I'll start off by saying today my mandolin is tuned down a whole step. So I took the G strings down to F, D strings down to C, A strings down to G, and my high E strings down to D. And so it just, everything's coming out a tone lower. My G chord is now an F chord. Just I'm feeling the tuned down vibes today. Those tunes were, the first tune was Out on the Ocean, and the second tune was The Black Rogue. Both of them are Irish jigs. The first tune's in G, the second tune is in D, but I played it down a string, so it came out in G. Both of those tunes are on my website. Again, first tune is Out on the Ocean, second tune is The Black Rogue. Both on my website. Cool. I saw a request for a piece that has has to do with snow. I'll play one of those in a little bit. I got to tune up my sleeves that can hopefully quench that need. I don't think it's on my website, but it's a good one. Michael asks, what do you suggest for warming up before playing? Scales, chords? There's a couple things I like to do. If I'm feeling stiff and not quite in the music, I whatever I do, I start out playing slow. Sometimes what I'll do is just kind of simple right hand exercises. Little cross picking in a chord. Maybe move some chords around. Things like that. Get your right hand moving, nothing too fancy. You can run some scales if you want. Whatever feels best to you, really. I really like just playing tunes. I'm not big, personally, on playing scales. But tunes are great ways to play scales in interesting orders. That's kind of all they are, is scales and arpeggios. So I like starting out with tunes, like maybe those tunes. You don't have to play them fast. Just pick your favorite tune. Play it this fast. Things like that. Hey, Rich, good to see you here. Everything's coming through on my end. I see you're in the chat. Great. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. All right, let me catch up with the chat here real quick. Hello from Russia. Great. Thank you for joining us. More North Carolina. It's been a warm couple weeks here in Maine. All of our snow is quickly dissipating. It's been over 40 degrees for over a week now. Scotland. Great. No worries, Chad. You got here just in time. There's no penalty for being a couple minutes tardy. Don't worry about it. My name is Baron Collinshill. If you haven't run into me before, I have a website called MandoLessons, and I teach a lot of mandolin on this YouTube channel and through my website. It's all the same material. I just host everything on YouTube. I've got the tablature and sheet music and play-along tracks over at my website. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. I do these, if you're new, I do these every Saturday at noon. I will actually not be here next week, but I'm going to be out of town. But the week after that, I'll be back to it. Rich says, could I spell my name? Yes, it's Baron. It's Baron. Got some questions about classical music, and where was that? Do you ever play classical? I don't play much. I have worked on some Bach in the past. Some of the cello suites. Etc. I can't actually remember all of it. So yes, Rich, my last name is Collins. It's Collins -Hill. All right, Dean's here. Glad to see you. So yeah, I do play a little bit. We're talking a little bit about classical music. I've played some in the past. I've never studied much classical music. I mostly just look up the pieces that interest me online and learn to play them. And then forget them as I don't play them anymore. But it's beautiful music. I wish I knew more of it. It's beautiful music. It's great to work on as a skill. It uses a lot of techniques you might not come across just playing tunes. There's some great music. There's on my website. Oh, what do I call that? Oops, I'm hitting buttons in the wrong spots here. I'm just gonna look it up. There's a page on my website that I'm forgetting where it is. Under the resources tab, there's a page called Tune Libraries, and on that page, I have let's see, where is it? The IMSLP Petrucci Music Library is a bunch of free online music. There's a lot of Bach. What's great is those cello suites, the tunes that I just played, or that piece that I just started playing. That one has a lot of. What they do is it was written for cello, so it was written for not this pitched instrument, but they have it transposed for violin, and therefore you can read it on the mandolin. Also, there's some great classical music books out there if you're a tab reader for mandolin. If you look up classical mandolin, or go to the classical mandolin section of Mandolin Cafe forums. There's a lot of great classical mandolin players over there that I highly recommend checking out. Great question from Tafka92. I hope I'm saying your screen name right. They say, I wondered recently how you would describe the difference between what you categorize as fiddle tunes versus songs. So there's a little bit of gray area, but for the most part, fiddle tunes are instrumental, often traditional, but sometimes recently composed melodies, played by fiddle players, mandolin players, banjos. They're called fiddle tunes because they're most strongly associated with fiddle and fiddle traditions, or violin. But get played on all kinds of instruments, versus songs, which are usually have words. Tunes being instrumental, songs have words. There's some crossover where you have a song that has a melody that's just played as a tune. So you might this is a tune. And then you have the words. Ought to see my Cindy, live way down south. She's so sweet, the honeybees warm around her mouth. It's a tune called Cindy. It's actually in the beginner series of on my website if you want to learn it. So that's sort of a crossover between a tune and a song. It's kind of both. But for the most part, the lyrics are the defining factor. If a song that has lyrics and a tune has no lyrics. Let's see, I'll catch up with the chat again here, make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, another good question here. So yeah, anything for cello, just put up a fifth and it's Mando friendly. Exactly. Cool. Jamie says Daniel Selman's book is the best Bach mandolin book, in my opinion. I'm unfamiliar with it. I don't know any in particular, but it's great to have that plug. Thank you, Jamie. Rob asks, which mics are best to record mandolin? I don't have a huge knowledge of microphones and recording equipment. I only know what I use and what I've come across. In terms of what I use, and anytime I talk about gear in these live streams or on my website, I always say I'm not sponsored by anything. I buy all my own gear. No stuff's being given to me for free. I'm not being paid to say anything. The mic I'm using right now is an Audio-Technica mic that just plugs straight into my computer with USB. I use this for the live streams, this guy right here, for the live streams and to make my play-along tracks. And it's the Audio-Technica, I think it's the AT2020. I can't be exactly sure about that, but I like it. I've had it for years. The mic I use to record my lessons is a little Zoom. Maybe I even got it around here somewhere. I don't have it handy, but it's a little Zoom recorder. It's the Zoom H1. I love those. They're small, compact. They get a great sound, in my opinion. Again, nothing fancy. It's just that doesn't plug into anything. It's just sort of a handheld recorder that you can then take the card out of and put in your computer. When I recorded my album, I have an solo old-time mandolin album that you can find on my website in the store page. And for that album, I used some different Audio-Technica mics that are more traditional studio mics. You plug in XLRs, and those are for Audio-Technica 4041s. I used a matched pair of small condenser mics. But ultimately, again, if you're into learning more about microphones, check out the Mandolin Cafe forum in the equipment section. I've learned a lot from people over there just talking about what they prefer. A lot of people have a lot more experience, that's the word I was looking for, with recording. Alright, let's see here. Rich says, I need to have 3 mandolins appraised for testamentary purposes. Any recommendations? I think most sort of high-end music shops will do that sort of thing. I don't know exactly where you're located. The Music Emporium in Massachusetts will do a good job. Retrofret, which is down in New York. Carter's, which is in Nashville. Groon's, which is out in California, I believe. Greg Boyd's, which is in Montana. That's a great question for Mandolin Cafe forums. I'd get on over there and ask people. It's usually a pretty straight-ahead process. I've never had any appraisals done myself, but it seems like it's a pretty straight-ahead system. In Florida, okay. I'm not particularly familiar. What I would do is go to mandolincafe.com, join the forum if you're not already a member over there, and ask about that on Mandolin Cafe, and you'll get sent in the right direction. There's people over there that'll have a great idea. James says that Woody Guthrie in the background. There's a lovely tune called Cowboy's Waltz, which I think has Woody playing the fiddle. Looking up. That poster over there is indeed a Woody Guthrie poster. It's a nice one. And I'll look up that tune. That's great. Ryan says, can you play Kumi's Reel? I don't know if you mean Cooley's Reel. I can play that tune. I don't know Kumi's Reel. I'm not saying it's not a tune. I'm just saying I don't know it. But yeah, I'll play a little Cooley's Reel. Rob asks, why are you tuned down a step? Any particular reason? Not particularly. I just sort of was feeling the warmer, lower sound today, and since I don't have to play along with anyone, sometimes I just like to tune down. It's kind of a breath of fresh air every once in a while to get a different, fingering's all the same. It just comes out with a different tone, which is a nice change of pace every once in a while. Cool, Coolies. Yes, I will play Coolies right now. I did see Tafka92 says today would have been Doc Watson's birthday. I saw that. Any favorite Doc songs? I'll think about that. But yeah, happy birthday, Doc. He's a legend. Okay, a little bit of Cooley's Reel. Maybe I'll throw something else in there if I can think of what it will be. There's a little Cooley's Reel for you. Great tune. One of the first tunes I ever learned. Not the super first. That's a really notey tune. But once I got a couple under my fingers, that was top of my list to learn. Where? Gonna catch up with the chat here. So, AC Mullane says, how do you get your cuts to sound so good? Sounds even better when I'm in tune. That'll do for now. So I think maybe what you're talking about is the sort of triplets that I do. And getting that really snappy sound out of them. I actually did a lesson on that. It's in the Technique and Fundamentals section of my website. And it's tunes, I'll find it here and sort of point it out on my website. So it's in the Technique and Fundamentals section, probably about halfway down the page. How to play triplets, part 1 and part 2. It's a 2-video series. What it is, I'll go over it now too, because it's a good question. What I'm doing is, if I slow that down, the sound sped up, it sounds like this. Let's see. So taking one of those little triplets, what I'm doing is you can either do down, up, or down, up triplets. I tend to go back and forth. Most of the time with jigs, I'm doing up, for some reason. But it's sort of personal preference and whatever feels most natural for you. And within that triplet, what I'm doing is I'm muting 2 of the notes and then letting the third ring out. So pick direction-wise, without muting, it sounds like this. And then with taking those triplets, which for me is up, it can be down, up, down, you can mute a couple of the notes. So it becomes... And what I'm doing is I'm just resting my finger over where I'm about to fret, but not pushing down. And you get this little slappy pick sound, muted sound. And then the third one rings out, so it becomes... which sounds a little funny slowed down, but when you speed it up, it really becomes more of a snap and more of a rhythmic idea rather than ba 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 ba. It becomes chka. Which gives it a little more punch than just playing straight through those triplets. I think that's what you were talking about, and that's how I do it. And if you want a more in-depth look at that and kind of slowed down, non-condensed version, check out my website in the Technique and Fundamentals section. Connell says, I just had my mandolin worked on by a guy who made guitars for Doc. Oh, was that Gallagher? I've heard about those guitars, but I've never played one myself. They sound great, though. Hey, Yellow Rose Farm, good to have you here. Don't worry. You can always, if you missed any of this or you want to come back to these at any time, you can always watch them after the fact. Christopher says, that's what I get for tuning down, or for tuning weird, is being out of tune. Yeah, that's true. I tuned down right before. It was kind of a last-minute decision, and now I'm paying the consequences. Linda asks, can you play Harvest Home? Yeah, I think I can play that tune. I never quite remember how it goes, but I will give it a shot. Here, I'm going to catch up with the chat and then play that a little bit. Andrew says, my first tune was the Blackbird Hornpipe. Cool, that's great. That's a beautiful tune, one of my favorites. Harvest Home kills me, I never get it. Yeah, so Harvest Home has this little triplet run that can be approached a couple different ways. There's a lesson on my website, and I think in the lesson I talk a little bit about pick direction. But when it goes into that, I'll play the tune in a second, and when it goes into the fast section, you really got to have your pick direction down more than anything else to really make it come out clean. And the open strings, there's a lot of string crossing as well, as Jamie points out. All right, this is good. We're talking about tunes that are holding us up. Christopher says it's Jerusalem Ridge for him. That tune holds me up too. Often, mostly just it's a 3 or 4 part tune, but some of the parts have little tags added onto them, and I can never quite get the order right. Is my problem there, and it's just a very notey tune. It's beautiful, beautiful tune. Cool. Yellow Rose is watching on the big screen. Blowing me up twice my real size. All right, let's see. Oh, Carl McIntyre. I'm not familiar with that guy, but if he's building guitars for Doc, he must be great. Yeah, I'll play a little Harvest Home if I can. I can never remember. Sometimes I play this tune backwards, but if you want to learn it right, or what I think was right at the time that I recorded the lesson, there's a lesson for Harvest Home on my website. Nope, I've already forgotten the tune again. There it is. Okay, here we go. there it is, Harvest Home. I think it's got another name as well, but can't remember what that is at the moment. Like when I put my coffee cup right here, it looks enormous. I'll try to get that out of the screen. So yeah, that tune, that fast run in the tune is definitely the catch-up point for everyone that I've ever kind of heard play the tune and learn the tune, and myself included. A couple things that'll help. One, as I mentioned earlier, is getting your pick direction down. There's a couple ways you can do it. It's a triplet run, so you can either play it, you can play it like a jig if it's more comfortable for you. You can go down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down. Which sort of takes that moment in the tune into jig pattern. Or you can just continue to play straight down, ups. Oops. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Whichever one feels comfortable to you. Try them both out. If you're comfortable with jig picking, try out jig picking on that section. See if it helps you out. The other thing is just the fact that it's increased speed. So if you start the tune, which might be comfortable for you there, at that speed, when you get here, you're going to be going way too fast. So figure out what speed it is that you can comfortably play. If it's there, the rest of your tune is here. So play the hard part, and this goes for any tune. Play the part that's giving you difficulties. First of all, take it out of context, play it a bunch so you get more familiar with that section, then add it back into the tune, and play the whole tune at the speed where the hardest part is comfortable, and then slow everything else down around it. So you can at least get through the tune at a constant tempo, and that'll really help. And then you can slowly build things up from there. And also just identifying those spots from the get-go, saying, this part here is giving me difficulties. That's a huge first step in getting over that hump, because you've identified it and you know it's coming, and you can be a little more prepared for it. Great question, great tune, good one to sort of work on some things here. Great, I'll catch up with the Ryan asked if I've learned King of the Fairies since last time. I haven't. That tune's pretty well out of my head. I knew it at one point. I made a lesson on it. I've never felt totally comfortable with the sort of length of it. It just doesn't come up in the Irish sessions that I play. If it came up more, I would have it more under my fingers, but that one is elusive to me. Kathleen says, I'd love for you to play Cherokee Trail. I know it's not public domain, but you can't teach us how to play it, but maybe you could give us a few little pointers. So that's a great tune. It's a tune by John Herman, who's one of my favorite banjo players. He plays all kinds of instruments, but great banjo player. He put out an album with Tim O'Brien and is it Dirk Powell called Songs from the Mountain, which is an album of tunes either directly or indirectly or sort of with some artistic interpretation found in the novel Cold Mountain. And so they looked through the book. I think they're all great admirers of the book. I read it a long time ago, but I should read it again. It's a book about the Civil War, and there's a lot of musical references in there. So they played some of those tunes. They wrote some tunes that maybe they thought characters might have been playing in the book. At least as I remember. It's been a long time since I remember, since I've thought about the exact details. But anyway, one of the tunes on this album is this tune called Cherokee Trail. I'll play it for you here. This is a great tune to work on. It's got a sort of simple melody, but then it's also got some beautiful chords that go underneath it nicely. B part. With chords. And a little bit more right hand. So, I think one thing that could be helpful if you're trying to learn that tune, you can go back after this video is done, learn, or mostly look. What I would recommend is learn it from the album. Just finding that melody. It's also I'm tuned down, so you'd have to tune down to match me. But learn that melody first. And then get the chords underneath that. And you can, maybe there's some written stuff about it and what the chords are. But yeah, it's a great tune because it's got a simple melody line on top, and then there's sort of all sorts of stuff you can do underneath to really fill it out into sort of more of a filled out piece. Okay, let's see. Great question though. Thank you, Kathleen. Mr. Cough Drop just got here. Yes, I am tuned down a whole step. Brought my G's down to F, so etc. etc. So I'm down F, C, G, D. Just because I like the sound. Dean asks, I know you can break staying in a scale, let's say G major, but in a chord progression, example 1, 4, 5, when do you play around each chord, as I have seen on some lessons? Or maybe I don't understand. I don't quite know that I understand your question. I think maybe what you're asking is sort of, if you have a progression like G, C, D, 1, 4, 5, 1, you're going to be playing out of a G scale. And then, but when you get to these 4 and 5 chords, you're going to want to land. You've sort of got these target notes. So if you're in G and then you go to C and D, you can start by just making sure you land on a C, which is in a G scale, when that C chord comes along. So if your chord is G, and then you go to C, and then D, and then G, you get G, C, D, G. And so you've got these target notes that are the note that is the 1, 4, and 5, so G, C, and D. You can also choose chord tones from those chords, so you can say, okay, I'm going to do the third of that C chord. I think ultimately, rather than thinking about it, if you're new to this, rather than thinking too hard about theory, just spend some time playing along with 1, 4, 5 progressions, whether you're listening to records, playing along with my play-along tracks that are on my website, things like that. You got a Guitar Buddy, whatever it may be. Our ears are naturally going to lend our playing towards doing, hitting these chord tones naturally, and you'll hear it when you start to do it. You'll be like, oh, I hit that C and it was a C chord and it really worked and it sounded great. That's going to be, I think, at least for me, was a much more effective way to learn to take breaks and improvise and take solos and play melodies really over chord progressions, because that's what our ears are used to hearing by listening to the music that we listen to, and the more time you spend doing it, naturally the the better and more intuitive your solos and breaks will get, and you'll naturally gravitate towards those chord tones rather than bogging yourself down in a lot of music theory, which can kind of put a damper on the fun of playing if you're like a lot of people, including myself. Michael Cleveland's version of Jerusalem Ridge is superb. Great fiddler and mandolin player. Yeah, I was actually just watching, there was some Facebook, he did a Facebook Live. He was just sitting there playing tunes for like 45 minutes. It popped up on my Facebook page a couple days ago. It was really cool, or maybe just yesterday. It was great to just see him go and be such a great fiddle player. And I bet he rips through Jerusalem Ridge. Tafka92 says, what's your favorite tune to play that gets you below, I'm assuming you mean like below this way, of the 12th fret? I don't know that I have one, really. There's one tune on my website that hits the 12th fret, but it doesn't go beyond it. It's actually a tune that I wrote. It's called Graduation Reel. I'm pretty sure that's on my website. And it's a tune I wrote for my friend when he graduated high school. Is it on there? Yeah, it is. And that one hits, it's a tune in A that really kind of gets up there. The B part. Gets into that closed position. Brilliancy gets up there. That only gets to the 10th fret. I don't know a whole lot of stuff. I don't use much beyond the... I rarely go beyond the 7th fret. Occasionally the 8th. Sometimes the 9th or 10th. Once in a blue moon, the 12th. And if I'm up here, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not doing anything important when I'm up there. Some people really know how to use that range. I'm not one of those people, really. Linda says, I've been working on The River Flows Within Me. I'm not familiar with that tune or song, but cool. That's great. I mean, you say it's a challenge for you. What's nice and what I find really important and helpful is if there's a tune or a song or some piece of music that I really, really like and really speaks to me, just having that desire to play it is a great incentive to practice versus like, oh yeah, there's a tune that I'm supposed to play because I should know it, and it's okay, it's good, but I'm going to learn it because I know it, or because everybody plays it. That can be an incentive on its own, but if there's a tune you're really fired up about, even if it's outside of what you think of as sort of your ability level, that's a great time to really focus in on that tune or song, that piece of music, and focus down on it, because it's really rewarding when you get little bits of it. And you get that much closer to being able to play your favorite song. So definitely it can be a challenge to even find those, but when you do, stick with it. It's really a worthwhile project, and you'll learn a lot from it by just pushing new skills into your brain and into your fingers. The cork hornpipe maybe is another name. I must be way behind in the chat here for Harvest Home. The cork hornpipe. That sounds believable. Hi from Jerusalem. Great. Welcome, Kevin. Rob D says, what is a have-to song or tune that mandolin players should know? That's a good question. I think, so I for the most part put common tunes on my website. It'll depend on your particular location, what kind of music you play, whether you're playing bluegrass or old time or Irish or Scottish or Quebec tunes. There's sort of, each genre has its own sort of must-knows. There's no real must-know. There's common tunes and less common tunes. And that also just depends on your geographic location and who happens to be around and who plays what. But a lot of the tunes on my website are often very common tunes, at least that I've come across. That said, I do have tunes that I wrote, which are obviously not going to be common, but so I don't. And sometimes I just put up a weird tune that I like because I like it and I want to teach it and I want to turn it into a more common tune. So I'll teach Irish tunes that I just learned that I'm just really fired up about. Gary asked for Woody's Rag. I have never learned that tune. I've heard it, but I don't know it. But thank you for the request. I wish I could come through for you there. Cool. That's a fun project. Rob says, I'm new to bluegrass and I'm trying to build my repertoire, so I'm trying to learn an A to Z. 26 songs with titles beginning A to Z. I have so far gotten to E. F. Any suggestions for F? That's a good question. Maybe people here can help you out. Give Rob some suggestions for tunes in F. Or songs, I guess, is what he's looking for. Along the tune side, you could do Fire on the Mountain. That's the first thing that popped into my head. Farewell Tryon is a great old-time tune in the key of C. Oh, I've got a couple F tunes. Flowers of Edinburgh, a tune I just put out recently. Fly Around My Pretty Little Miss. That's a good one. Fisher's Hornpipe, also good. Flop-Eared Mule. Those are the F tunes that are on my website, at least under a cursory glance. But I'll keep that in my head and see if anything else pops out. Oops. Okay, I'm getting way behind on the chat here. Oh, maybe not so bad. Where am I? I'm just lost mostly. Oh. Okay, okay, so other names for the Harvest Home, Cincinnati Cork, the Cork Harvest Home, Harvest Time. Cool. Good to know. Thesession.org if you're unfamiliar with it. Mostly Irish, but some old-time Scottish, Quebec tunes, a little bit of everything. Mostly focused on Irish. Lots of great, thousands, more tunes than you could ever learn. And it's got all the recordings that they were recorded on, and it doesn't have tab, it has ABC and standard notation for a lot of those tunes. For all of those tunes, I just dropped my pick and got distracted. A really wonderful resource. And all the alternate titles for all the tunes, which is helpful. Whoops, my chat is going all jumpy on me. Cool. Welcome, Michael from Ireland. Thanks for joining us. Kevin says, why are you tuned down? What tuning? So, yes, I'm tuned down I've taken everything down a whole step. So my G's are down to F, D's down to C, A's down to G, E's down to D. All my chords look the same. But it's just it's a little mellower sound. And especially when I'm just playing on my own, I'm not going to confuse people unless you're sitting at home trying to play along with me. At that point, I apologize. But it's just a lower, deeper sound. The strings feel a little floppy. It's a different feeling. I like the sound. It's just sort of did it on a whim. I have a lesson on my website on cross tunings where I talk about a bunch of different alternative tunings, including this one. This is actually the tuning that a lot of most Cajun music is played in. They'll tune everything down a whole step. I think it's to match the accordions. That's my best guess because all their accordions are in C. So when you play a D scale, it comes out as a C scale. Jamie says, I play Irish traditional music but learn Man of Constant Sorrow simply because of the little chord you put between the G and the C. Yeah, that little dominant 7 chord, a little bit bluesy, really leads from the G to the C. Footprints in the Snow, great song. Frog on a Lily Pad. That's a good... Is that a tune? I feel like I've heard Mike Compton play that. Mike Compton's great, one of my favorites. I'm pretty sure he's got Frog on a Lily Pad somewhere. Foggy Dew. That's a blast from the past. Haven't thought about that in a long time. Where am I? My chat is just jumping all over the place today. Michael says, I'm working on the Eddie Vedder tune Rise. It's hard, but I really like the song, so it's giving me the incentive to practice. Great, just like I was just talking about. Actually, I believe that tune, he's playing a mandolin tune down a whole step. Because I think it comes out in like F or B flat, or C or something, but I think he's usually using regular chord shapes, so I think he's tuned down. It's been a long time since I've listened to that song, but I think that's what's going on there. Galway Girl. I can't remember how that one goes off the top of my head, but I know I've heard it somewhere. Yeah, I need a producer to help track the chats. That's true. It would be helpful. What happens is I have it all scrolled to some particular spot, and things keep building up underneath, and then when I try to scroll down a little, the whole thing jumps to the very bottom, and I have to go back up and find my old spot. But what you gonna do? Other than that, it's great. Victor says, any tips for taking care of your mandolin humidity-wise? In Maine, it must go from very humid in the summer to very dry in the winter. Yeah. So there's a couple things you can do. You can get little humidifiers that go in your case. I've actually got this, probably can't get that little humidifier there that just keeps everything a little happier. Because, yeah, things can really dry out in the winter, and it's good to take care of your instruments. But yeah, you can do humidifiers in the case, humidifiers out. Yeah, I guess I don't have a whole lot more to say beyond that, but keep track of things. And if things get cracked, then you got to get them fixed. It's kind of part of owning instruments and playing them hard. You can take good care of them, but if they get cracked, it's not the end of the world. Chad says Cajun music. Yeah, I don't know any Cajun music myself. It's not much of a mandolin centric genre. Apparently there's been a couple folks that play mandolin. I can't think of their names off the top of my head, but I've asked some Cajun music friends of mine about it. But I love listening to it. It's got a great groove, and I think a lot that can be learned regardless of what instrument you're playing. Some of my favorite stuff to listen to. Cool. Kevin says been learning Snowdrop on ukulele. I've got a friend that plays the fiddle that plays that tune, and I've played along. I can't start it myself, but it's a really sweet tune. Cool. Arnold made it before the end. Glad you could join us and catch the tail end of it here. Yeah, dominant 7, blues 7 chord. A great way to get from a G chord to a C chord. If people aren't familiar with that, I'll just go over that real quick. So you got your regular old G chord. It's going to come out like an F because I'm tuned down a whole step. But what you're going to do is you got a couple options. You can do G and then take that 3rd fret down to the 1st fret. So then you have open, open, 2, 1, and then do your C chord. So it becomes... Or you can do, if you kind of concentrate on the lower 3 sets of strings, you do open, open, 2, which is your G chord without that E string. And then you put your middle finger on the 3rd fret of your D string, open 3, 2, and then open 2, 3 is your C chord. And you get... a couple options to get from a G to a C using that dominant 7 chord. Jamie says he's working on a new song, Baron's Fluffy Slippers, a jig in the key of G. Great. I when you finish it, send it to me, and I will I'll make a lesson for it. James says he'll re-request his... Was that Snowdrop that you request? Oh yeah. You right at the beginning, James requested a snow-themed tune. I will do that now. So there's this great Irish tune. Is it a... I guess it's a slip jig. Cool. So it's called The Snowy Path. It's a great Irish... I guess it's a slip jig. Anyway, here's what it is. A really lovely tune. I think it is recently composed. I think we might have even been talking about this a couple times ago, but maybe somebody can pull up who made this tune. But anyway, sounds like this. Wow, that was a little rusty. It's been a long time. I can't remember if the beat part happens twice or not, but that's the idea of the tune. It was not my smoothest tune playing ever. um, Good question from Jeff. How many times do you have to play a song to memorize it? Unfortunately, the answer is as many as it takes. It takes me a long time. I am not the sort of musician that can hear a tune once and play it. I've played with people where I play a tune like twice through and they're like, "Oh yeah, I got it." Boom. Like, I know that one now, which is amazing, and I wish I had those skills. And you can work towards that sort of memory just by the more tunes you learn, the quicker they go and the more they get in your head. There's a certain amount of like learning a tune and then being able to recall it a week later. That's maybe a different muscle in the brain. But yeah, it really depends. It depends on how notey the tune is, how familiar it sounds to me. You know, if I hear, if we take a tune like Cripple Creek or something that you've heard, like whatever, dueling banjos, something that you've heard a million times, and you try to play it, you're gonna have it a lot quicker than me playing some tune that I just wrote that no one's ever heard before in their life. That tune's not going to be as familiar because you've never heard it before, and it's going to take longer to get stuck in your head. It has a lot to do with how familiar you are with the tune. Oh wait, I just said that, but I meant it in a different way. What did I mean there? I got a little sidetracked. How familiar the style of tune is what I was trying to say. You know, so if you play old time tunes and someone plays you an old time tune, you can probably pick it up pretty quick. But if you play Irish tunes and somebody plays you an old time tune, like all of the sort of classic little lines that you hear and the way the tune's put together is going to be different, and it's going to take you longer to learn it. So lots of variables, and for me it also depends on whether I'm learning it by ear or learning it. I guess even a couple ways of learning it. You can learn it by ear off of a record where you're just trying to keep up and then you get most of the notes and there you go. Or you're in a session where you get most of the notes and you're like, oh, I got 80% of that one. Maybe I'll get the rest next time. Or you're slowing a record down and learning it kind of bit by bit. Or you have someone, like I do on the website, breaking the tune down for you. There's always something that holds me back when I'm playing and I'm learning from a written source, whether it's standard notation or tabs, things like that. Often when I learn from tabs, I have a harder time really learning the tune and being able to look away from the sheet music and still be able to play it. My brain gets really attached to that written source really quick, and it makes it hard for me to peel my eyes off the page, which is why I try to avoid learning tunes from tablature. I think it kind of holds me back anyway. Not saying that's the case for everybody, but it's somewhat common. I've heard that from a lot of other people as well. And the more you try to learn by ear, the quicker it gets. I might be quicker at learning a tune by ear now than reading it off a page. Jamie says you recently said it's good to play the song through 10 times to nail it, and that's what I do. Great. Yeah, the more times, I mean, the whole thing about playing fiddle tunes is repetition is what it's all about. And, you know, if you can play through the tune 10 times and not get lost and, you know, not hit any major clams and maybe add a little bit variation here or there. A great way to start adding variation to tunes is just play it so many times that you've got it down, and then variations can sometimes just start kind of falling out of your fingers by like, well, I did this last time. This time I'm going to go. Things like that. Little bit at a time. No need to break off into complete improvised solos, but just little variations are nice, and ornamentation, things like that. All right, I think, let's see, I'm going to maybe see if there's any last minute questions here. Yeah, waltzes. I have plans for more waltzes. I can't do a Shokin Farewell because it's a copyrighted tune. But there are some resources out there, whether it's sheet music or I'm starting to hit spotty internet. It's really windy here. Have some crazy weather, so hopefully my internet doesn't cut out. But can't do a Shokin Farewell. But I do have more waltzes in the pipeline. I'll end with a little bit of Cripple Creek here. Cool. Dan says, I find songs in the key of D that I pick up fast. Yeah, I think part of what it is, for me anyway, is the more tunes that I learn in a particular key, the quicker I get at learning them. So I'm going to learn a tune in D a lot quicker than I'm going to learn a tune in F, just because I know more tunes in D, and I've got more. When I hear a phrase, I sort of know how it's going to come out my fingers, versus playing in a key I'm less familiar with. I don't know where that is kind of mapped on the fretboard in the same way. A little Cripple Creek, and then send you on your way. I'll do it in A. I can't remember if it's in G or A. I think I actually just either... Have I put out a lesson for this, or is it about to come out? I can't remember. But I'll play it in G, because I think I taught it in G. Actually, I'll play it in A on a mandolin that's tuned down a whole step, so it'll come out in G. How about that? Well, thank you all so much. I hope I got to everything, but I apologize if I don't. If I didn't, come back next time. No MandoLessons live next week. I'm going to be out of town. Thank you, Andrew, for the super chat. Always appreciated. Thanks for joining again. And yeah, I'll be out of town next week, but we'll be back the following week. So whatever that ends up being, 2 Saturdays from now, 2 weeks from now, be back here at noon Eastern Standard Time. And see you then. Thank you so much, and have a good weekend.